Yeah, now it kind of goes without saying that all of our families have dynamics about them. And so we've been on this journey over the last several weeks in which we have examined the family from a few different perspectives. And the truth is that we need to look at them in many, many more perspectives. And we will, no doubt, in the coming months or years for sure. But we started this journey just looking at the general idea of family and how it is that God uses the family. And then we focused in on marriage and how with marriage it's so important for us that if we want to lose our lives, it's really in losing that we begin to gain that marriage in a very supernatural way. And last week we talked about raising our children up in the Lord and the significance of that and the intentionality that is necessary for that to happen. And today we're going to look at a very much more specific aspect of a dynamic in a family. As we drill down into the family dynamics that so many of us have experienced, today the focus is primarily going to be on addiction. And I'm not going to ask anyone to raise hands, but no doubt if we did do that, I would say virtually every family in here has been impacted, sadly, by addiction in one form or another. And I can say that for certain with my own family, as I have had cousins lose their life due to addiction. I've had good friends lose their life due to addiction. I've unfortunately had to preside over those funeral services. And I've even had my sister who has battled with addiction much of her life. And now she, while being able to essentially separate herself from that, she's dealing with the health effects of that. And it is quite a journey for her. And so we have all been affected by this dynamic. And so if we were to ask ourselves, or if I were to ask you and you were to answer, what comes to mind, or what is a word that comes to mind, or a thing that comes to mind whenever I say addiction, you would probably say something to the effect of, maybe you would think of a person, or maybe you would think of a substance. Perhaps you might even think of maybe a circumstance or a consequence in which addiction is present. But when it comes to the Bible and this particular topic, what we all have to realize is the Bible doesn't necessarily use the word addiction. Instead, if you were to say one word to the Bible and one word to describe addiction, it would simply be slavery. It would be this idea like that you would have chains that are literally on you. And these chains are holding you back. They are confining you. They are restricting you. And sadly, over time, we get so warped that these chains actually become almost a comfort for us. And this thing that we can often drift towards that we think will give us life inevitably takes the life from us. And in that, we begin to see the seriousness of this type of sin in our lives. And in the midst of this bondage, you have these chains, and every single one of these rings could represent something different. Maybe it would represent guilt and shame and depression and anxiety and anger, and you can just go on down the line. But what's amazing about Jesus is that part of his mission in this world is what Luke 4 tells us, that the Spirit of the Lord, Jesus said this of his mission, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and God has sent me to proclaim freedom for the captives. And so part of Jesus' mission in this world is to draw near to us and to set the captives free, to not put us in a place where we are controlled by these types of chains. And the sad thing too about these chains is in our society is many of them are silent. They're the kind of chains that you just drag along with you. And by silence, I mean many of them are either hidden or they're socially acceptable. And so it's hidden, and people don't realize quite how much you drink or quite the drug that you're a hold of, or there's some sexual issue, and people are sort of explaining it away or accepting it in some ways. And we just live in this world where these chains, again, are holding us back. But Jesus has said he wants to set us free to experience that full life in him. And part of that freedom that we have in him, and this is what he says, is that the Son has set you free, then you are free indeed. And so with all that being said, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. His name's Marty who's experienced some of that freedom. And this journey that Marty has been on has been one in which in the sports world where he was able to be a part of Duke University and experience many championships and quite a bit of success at Duke University. But then coming out of that, he also wrestled with alcoholism. And he's many years sober now, and he's going to tell us about that journey that he has been on. And with all that being said, would you give my friend Marty Clark a warm welcome?
Thank you, Phil.
Well, Marty, it's
good morning.
Appreciate you being with us and being a part of this Sunday service. Now, with every great story, there's a beginning. And why don't you share a little bit of your beginning and being a native here of Denver, Colorado, and maybe even a little bit of what it is that got you to Duke University.
Okay, sure. So my childhood could be described as this first row, right? 9 folks in our family, all late to church, right? And then they have to come in, and this is where we have to sit, right? St. John's happened dozens and dozens of times. How we got there, I have no idea. Good morning, again, Marty Clark, Dry Creek in Yosemite, where I grew up, spent a lot of my childhood, ended up going to Mullen High School, playing in all the AYL sports and all the, the things that, club stuff that guys do. I think that what I would maybe want you to remember about or notice about my childhood was that, one, I had 6 sisters, right? Still do, right? They're coming for me, trust me. And I was the only boy. So my dad and I were hunted like we're an endangered species, right? Mm-hmm. So we spent a lot of time playing baseball, hitting tees, shooting buckets. Like we were, I would carry his bags from the car into the car, get changed, let's go. And we'd head down to Honeywell. Anybody remember where Honeywell was a long time ago? Yes, like 3 people. You guys are so young. Baseball field complex, Dry Creek, Holly. Anyway, so getting off topic. But I spent a lot of time with my dad, and I spent a lot of time, like he was my best friend. And at the same time, we had a very unstable household financially. So 7 kids, we all had paper routes just in case, right? Cars, towed off the driveway, foreclosures, like it was unstable. But the thing that was fun though, that kept us all together was all the basketball and the baseball and the football and other stuff, in which we did at St. John's Lutheran, again, getting there late most days. So we knew, all of my sisters knew that we were going to have to take care of our own college. Wasn't even a question. Like we were going to have to do this on our own, and so that was the goal. That was our. We could see what those players looked like, how they acted, where did they go to school, how big were they, how fast were they, just kind of lining it up. And I think that was sort of that anxious, hey, I've got to do this no matter what mentality I had that got me to Duke. Yeah. And got me to, it could have gone a number of different places. Yeah. But
it's amazing that you would be able to get there from Denver, Colorado, and just share us just with a little bit about that. You don't have to go too much in detail, but just the fact that you were able to get to Duke University from Denver, Colorado, because I've been to a lot of high school basketball games in Denver, and there are not a lot of Duke assistant coaches roaming around here. I'll just tell you that. So how did that happen?
5-star camp, one camp,
yep.
One 3.5-day period. Was playing well, called home using, you guys remember what a calling card? Yeah, okay, good. This is older than that first group. And so using a payphone, you young guys, called home, and my mom was like, well, Bobby Knight and Mike Krzyzewski and Steve Fisher and these guys are all calling the house. Like, what are you doing out there? And I'm like, and the phone's like, I'm shaking, right? Because I think I've done it. I think I've helped my mom and dad figure out that question about Marty going to school. That was a big deal.
Yeah. So you make it to Duke University, and just a moment of therapy for myself. So he makes it Duke University. You're on the 91 team, wins the championship. Nobody thought you would. You did it. 92, you're on your way to the national championship game, an Elite Eight. You play University of Kentucky. Now, what I want you to understand is I was the biggest fan that you could possibly imagine of University of Kentucky. And I grew up in Southern Indiana. Like the phrase "bleed blue," yes, bled it. And so I thought we had a shot. 1992, I thought we had a shot. So we got all these great players, Jamal Mashburn specifically, and some others. It's the greatest college basketball game arguably ever played. They get into overtime against Duke University, Mr. Marty Clark here, and others. And as they are winding down, this guy named Sean Woods hits this unbelievable shot. It banks in. And rather than tell you what happens next, I just want to show it to you. You've probably seen it, but just in case, I'm going to show you this great moment that happened that Marty and his team were a part of. Check it out.
2.1 seconds left. No team has repeated as NCAA champions since UCLA did it in 1973.
You know, one of the things I've seen Duke do in the past in situations like this is try for the quick pass to half court and call a quick timeout so they can get in better shooting range.
There's the pass to Leitner. Puts it up. Yes!
Yep. And there at the end there, you see Marty on the pile, whatnot. My entire 10-year-old life was ruined at that point. And it really was. I mean, I didn't have a lot to live for at that point, and that was it. Like, I was wanting more basketball. So they win. You win. You know, all that happens. They end up winning the championship. 93, don't quite do as well. 94, you're national runner-up with Grant Hill. Quite a run that you had. And tell us a little bit about what that experience was like through those years.
They were hard. I think, a lot of moving parts in those 3 years. I mean, you're trying to, my freshman, sophomore year, my sophomore year, I had 5 free throws at the end of the semifinal game. Hadn't played much of the last 4 games prior. And so it's like, I was always sort of on the cusp of like being a part of the rotation. So the basketball was exceptionally hard. Junior and senior year got better. 6-man settled into that. There are not a lot of students at Duke that aren't exceptional at multiple things. And so fitting in was, with my 3.6 from Mullen, it was a little bit challenging that way. So, but I met the President of the United States my senior year of high school, my freshman year of college, my sophomore year of college. It's just Kevin Costner and Bill Cosby was in there. I won't tell about that one. Yeah, forgot about that one. So I mean, just an amazing. Everything was excitable and seemed like, it was easy to get motivated for whatever was going on that day, and there was generally a lot.
That's quite a thing. And then you get through those years at college, and you've met presidents, and you've won national championships, and I mean, you're a celebrity on campus, and then you graduate. Well, at least the team's a celebrity.
Truth.
Yeah, so at any rate.
Celebrity minus.
Yeah, all that to be said, then you have to graduate and you move on. And what happens from there?
Yeah, sure. They would only let me be there 4 years. And which was interesting because after my freshman year, coach was like, we made a mistake. We should have redshirted you. Yeah. And sort of which would have been nice. But, my journey after college sort of spent the next 3 or 4 years, 3.5 years, Turkey, Finland, Australia, playing, on what you would make essentially was about a teacher salary, right? And which was fine if there was a progression, but there generally kind of wasn't. So I kind of knew after that third year or so that, playing for, a good salary was not in the cards for me, and got hurt a couple times and decided to quit. And I went back to Chicago. I had some money in my pocket, and I ran around the city for a year and a half and developed some unhealthy habits. So it's like, if I could describe my drinking, it was fun, then it was less fun, then it was scary, and then it was necessary. Okay, so in that last 3 months of my drinking, I'm showered, like launching whatever was in my system like clockwork. Could not hold down anything. Esophageal ruptures, like I was in a really, really bad spot. So I guess that time after school was I was growing sort of a giant resentment and guilt and shame on my own because I didn't have what I felt like what I was entitled to. If I had averaged 10 points a game in the ACC right now, I'd be making $1 million a year. Yeah. So that was the beginning, developing a lot of resentments and getting into a fairly depressive state, and starting to really beat up on some of the relationships I had with family because they were easy targets.
Tell us a little. You shared with me some of your faith journey, and perhaps even what that early on your experience with your pastor of your church. What he had said to you, and then share with us sort of how that relationship with God progressed along.
Progress or regress, I guess. So I was very excited about being a Christian and God-fearing kid. Like I thought I needed that stand on my own as a child at St. John's. And my relationship with God, I thought was hard, but it's genuine. And when we got to our confirmation and all the way through all that stuff, and I was so nervous. I'm like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. This isn't for me. Like, what's happening? And so Pastor Koch at the time had said, listen, Marty, you've been doing great. Met all your requirements, all your da-da-da-da. And, I see you as working with kids someday, as a profession, which I ended up doing for about 15 years. So that was rock solid. And from there, it just kind of, spaced down until really after, that second, third year of, there were a lot of Lutheran churches in Finland. I don't know if you knew that.
Didn't know that, but
okay.
Good to know.
Right. And so that relationship had basically come to, I was embarrassed. I was, like inside of myself saying, I was ashamed to call myself, a Christian. And I didn't know who to talk to about it. I did, but I didn't. It was a part of my life that I absolutely was about to really, really need to depend on as I got into recovery, because I was bankrupt. I was morally, yeah.
And I know those years where you're in Chicago, and obviously afterwards, you're hitting the north side bars, south side bars, you're going to other places as well. And in the course of all of that, you're spending some money.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you were paying for all of that and where it put you.
Well, you learn to, if you're a seasoned alcoholic like I was, you learn to hang out with people that would pay for stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Don't get it twisted. So, but I would say, any given week, it was spending, $500 to $700 easy in Chicago, right? And that's with friends, with benefits. So yeah, I mean, so at the end of, so before I moved back to Denver, I was I needed a complete change. I was engaged. I got disengaged, and I needed a new start. And that's when I came back here and I started coaching.
Yeah. And through all those years, I think you had shared maybe $25,000 a year. It wasn't unheard of to spend on alcohol.
No,
Yeah.
That's easy.
And with all of that, there's some dynamics from your past and even your present that were feeding into that. You had shared with me that there's a tendency whenever we have addiction to whatever that addiction is, we do it at somebody. Somebody does something to us. I'm going to show you, so I'm going to go do whatever it is. I'm going to go drink. I'm going to go take the drug. There's some sexual thing that you're pursuing. What was that? Share that journey.
It was just, I would find an easy reason to drink at somebody, like my dad. Like whenever we ever had family gatherings, or I ended up working for him sometimes, like doing, getting out of work early, making sure this thing isn't over here, the wrong green board over on Walgreens, like whatever it was. Alcoholics are always looking to for me, this is just for me, looking for reasons to use. Okay. We're looking for reasons to not use, but there's a lot more reasons to use than not. So having something like that was really visceral. My dad was not a faithful man. I'm gonna leave it at that. Yeah. And I had all of these 6 sisters, and I see this row, and I see my family. They could not stand up to a 6'8", 250-pound man. When I became about 27, 28 years old, I did. And it wasn't pretty. And it was dangerous, and it was reckless. And thankfully, nobody got hurt. But that's like, my using, my drinking was fueled by resentment, anger, fear, anxiety, all of it, and flash forward, 6 or 7 years, there's a mood disorder that's tucked away in there somehow. So yeah, it was scary, because I was off and running, and I didn't care.
And that created some consequences in your life that were there, that became more apparent through the years, and with your personal life, personal relationships, professionally perhaps even. But share with us a little bit about some of the consequences that occurred and you experienced relationally.
Well, if you have a warrant for your arrest, okay, I suggest that you don't get pulled over for a red light stop.
All right.
Denver County, that was fun. That was something I'll never do again. But that's what happens. Like you make these mistakes and you forget about them, like financial or legal or kids or what, whatever it is, and it just comes up and it hits you, and there's nothing you can do.
And with you've got a wife and kids. Talk to us about that journey with them.
So when I came back, funny, a girl from Yuma who played volleyball at Duke, who were friends, engaged, living together, whatever, within 6 months. And we had, in that next 4 years, had 2 children. So 4 and 2, and I'm in the full tilt of my drinking. And I didn't know what to do, and she was like, she's protecting the kids. You got to go. And quite frankly, when I checked myself into the Cedar over in Aurora, like, I was relieved. I was relieved because I could not trust myself. Where I was gonna go, who was I gonna be with, what was I gonna do? And right around that 4 years of being married, I had a hip replacement. So I'm a full-blown alcoholic. I'm drinking 5-6 days a week. Now I have fistfuls of Vicodin and oxycodone, hydrocodone, and like all hell broke loose. And I shouldn't really be here.
But you are.
But I am.
And with that, your wife said some things to you to really get your attention. And what was that relationship like in your marriage? And there's a unique path that you've been on.
Yeah, you know, you gotta, and this is like the reason I'm still divorced. Right at treatment. Okay, we'll skip ahead for a feel good. My wife and I got divorced 10 years ago. This past February 25th, we got married again.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yes. We needed a feel good in there. Yeah.
We do.
And so it's like she's, you know, I love you, but I'm gonna love you from afar. Like, oh, damn it. You know, I want to keep messing up your life. You know, what are you doing? But that was what she did. She got coached on that, though. I guarantee you, she got coaching for that. And so I spent the next 3 years, you know, away from the family, like getting sober, doing the work, and then finally back in the house. But she was like, there was one day, I can't remember what day. She said, you know, Marty, there is no way this is the best version of you. And that stung. Mm-hmm. And she was right. And I had just so much stuff that I was taking along with me every day, all these things that I didn't know how to set them down. And that's what going to treatment did. That's where my relationship with Christ picks up in treatment, 12-step. And my recovery's been kick ass, sorry. But like, I work in the industry, you know, do intervention work, get people get situated, work for different, and my life is great. It's great. Okay? Because I was able to come back to God, come back to Christ, and have that be the sort of the epicenter of my recovery.
What were, from their vantage point, speaking, your wife speaking to you with such a phrase? Maybe we've got some people that are full tilt in, maybe some people that are teetering on fully having an addiction, or maybe are just really at a breaking point. What are some phrases that, from your experience, would be the type of phrase that if somebody like that hears it, they really need to have their ears perk up, as opposed to dismiss what somebody might say to them?
Well, those two things that I just kind of shared with you, I think those were, you know, I'm not going to participate in your nonsense. I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alcoholism specifically is very much a family disease, and all the kids and the husband, wife, significant other, however, whatever, play their role. But if they don't all heal at the same time, it's not going to work. I've worked with hundreds of families that just, I'm telling you, it doesn't work. So that means being completely honest and open to an assessment, open and honest, talk to Mike, right? Talk to somebody who's done this, who's been there, you know, in a meeting or wherever. Like, just be coachable. Okay? You're not going to do this. I couldn't do it on my own, and I was going nowhere.
Yeah.
And I wanted desperately to be sober. I wanted to be everything God had intended for me to be. But if I was drinking or using, I wasn't coming remotely close. So the thing of alcoholism addiction is about 20% of it is the actual chemical addiction, which we can get you sober in about 10 days. Okay. The rest and the more important part of it is the why. Why can I not stop drinking? Why do I need this? Why do I need to go? Why do I? That's the part that needs to be addressed in an honest way.
When it comes to speaking to everybody here, when it comes to these addictions, that beating the addiction won't make the desire go away immediately. It's really the moment whenever you decide to desire Christ more than that thing that it starts losing. And there's really some beautiful things that can happen from there. And as it relates to what he was just alluded to there at the beginning, if you hear somebody in your life that, like that marital covenant, that child, maybe a grown child, perhaps even a parent to some extent, if they're saying, like, I don't want to be involved in your life anymore in some way, and they're pulling back, that immediately should cause alarm bells in our minds to go off. And that doesn't just happen with drinking and some sort of substance abuse. I mean, honestly, what I have, maybe even some ways in my own life, felt, but if you get addicted to like violent outbursts or angrily expressing yourself, and some people just start pulling away, you have got to lean into that and fix it. If they're pulling away, that's a huge sign that you have to change something. Now, for those that are on that side of it, that aren't dealing with the addiction, but they're dealing with the one that's addicted, what kind of encouragement would you have for them?
Boundaries. Set them. Get some help setting them. You don't have to do it by yourself. There's, again, I love you, but I'm going to love you from afar. So it's, at some point, the safety of the house or the child, whatever it is paramount, right? Hopefully it doesn't get that far. But like, I think having an honest, assessment by, a clinician and LCSW, LAC, there's a million of them. If you need one, call him, he'll call me. And just start there. Like, be honest. Be honest. Why you're drinking? Like, not drinking for me is so much fun because I'm always available to do anything. Always. Okay. I have more resources to do the things that I want to do because I'm not using, spending $150 there, $120 there. So, it's ask for help, but you have to do it together. And if you don't, it's very likely it's not gonna be healthy.
It's not gonna stick.
So, no.
You would share, well, the scriptures tell us the old is gone and the new is come in Christ. Tell us about your faith journey as we're about to wrap up here, that faith journey and how it has, in a lot of ways, supported you through, and then you have to tell everybody how long you've been sober too. How your faith has helped you to get to where you're at now.
I think the one thing about, which I didn't want to bring God in when I really wanted to try to get sober. How can I work around it, right? Okay. Well, that didn't work either. He's like, just hey, Marty. But understanding and knowing God's will for me. Like, that's the quest. Like, that's where I want to live. And I'm going to need you to help me do it, and you to help me do it, my mom. Like, I can't understand all that stuff by myself all the time. So I think God's will is, you know, is paramount. May 15th, God willing, will be 11 years.
Wow, praise God. Almost 11 years in, newly remarried. It's amazing. What parting words would you have for us in regards to your journey in this topic?
I mean, hello? Okay. My wife's father passed from ALS. We're seeing some of the onset of autoimmune issues she's having herself. And she's terrified, and so are we. And so what using and drinking, whatever you want to call it, it takes us away from the present. And we don't know how much time we have. We don't know how much time to be of service. I try to spend my time in service. Today is a Super Bowl victory for Marty Clark and his family. Super Bowl. Being able to sit up here and share with you, unload my stuff off, like make it lighter. So, time is precious. Use it with your heart. God, that would be my wish for folks.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You know, with this topic, a lot of it comes back to ultimately sin. And there's some things about, you know, Christianity that we can learn. They go back to some of the key aspects of it. The cross teaches us that sin is serious. But the empty tomb teaches us that sin is not sovereign. All right? And addiction will say, you will never win. You will never break free from this. But Jesus says, if you are free indeed. And today is not about you fixing yourself. Today is really about all of us surrendering ourselves. Because that cell and those chains that have us confined, all of us, in one way or another, they don't get broken through our efforts. They get broken simply by letting him come in. And then he does for us what we could never, ever, ever, ever do for ourselves. And we find ourselves at a place where ultimately we have to drag that stuff out into the light. And when we do, there's a grace there that goes beyond our wildest imaginations to experience. I'm going to say a word of prayer for us. And with that grace and forgiveness in mind, we'll have a brief time of communion. Let's pray. Father, we're so grateful, Lord, for the grace that's possible in your Son. I'm grateful, Father, for, Lord, the journey and the presence that you've had in Marty's life, and, Father, for his testimony that he can share with us now. I pray, Lord, for each and every one of us that we would indeed allow you to draw near, and that in that drawing near, Father, that we can be changed. The old would go, the new would come, and it's a new that is only found in you. Father, again, we thank you so much for what you've given us in your Son, and we pray this in his name. So here for these next few moments, if you've received those communion elements, we want to encourage you to reflect on that grace and that forgiveness and that relationship that's found in Jesus. For everyone here who's called on his name, if you haven't received those elements, you can raise your hand. Our team will be happy to bring them to you. And then afterwards, we're going to have a moment in which we're not going to have a time of worship, but more of reflection. We're going to have a special song for you that we would encourage you to reflect upon it on the topic that we've discussed today.